Alright, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be a relatively quick review and overview of this knife. This is the Great Eastern Cutlery made Tidioute Cutlery Pioneer in Woodland Micarta. And it is the 23 pattern. The full tang stamp number system on this knife is 235220. And what that means real quick, you can look up the tang stamp system on GEC's website, greateasterncutlery.net, but it means it's the 23 pattern. The 5 stands for the main blade, the drop point style blade. The next 2 there stands for it's a 2-blade knife, and then the 20 is for its year of production, 2020. And it's in Woodland Micarta, as you can see. So as always, it comes in the tube. We'll open it up, and this one is coming with a pin. Now, you don't always get the pin with a knife. It's kind of a little bit random, but mine came with the pin, and this pin is going to coincide with the etch, which you'll see in just a second. So there's the pin for this knife, and let's open the knife itself up. Again, as all Great Eastern Cutlery knives do, it comes in some wax paper. And this is the knife. So, what is this 23 pattern? Well, the 23 pattern is a square end jumbo trapper based on the classic Remington jumbo bullet trapper. And it's a pattern that Great Eastern Cutlery has done several times, including the first knife or first pattern that the Great Eastern Cutlery made in 2006 was this 23 pattern. But they're doing a few new things on this run in 2020 of this knife, and I thought first I would kind of go over that. One of those things that they haven't done before on this knife is the Woodland Micarta. So they have used the Woodland Micarta on some of their fixed blades and things like that, but not on this specific pattern. And it's an interesting jigging pattern. It's almost kind of like a Winterbottom style jigging pattern, but on micarta instead of bone. And this is what they call their muslin micarta. They have used it on several different patterns, but this is the jigged version, which they call their Woodland micarta. And it does seem to have a little bit of, burnished or burnt look to it that gives it that darker look within the jigging. So it's a cool new jigging pattern. I think that it is a practical jigging pattern, actually. You could, really get a good grip on this knife with those really deep grooves that you see. And they are, pretty deep, so that if you were using this knife for, work outdoors, something like that, you would get a good grip with that. They also, as far as I know, I looked at the GEC database some, and I don't believe that they've used this shield, the badge shield, on this pattern before. So that's another new thing. And then finally, kind of the biggest update to this run of the 23 is a little bit of an engineering improvement on the back springs. So the previous runs pretty much all had low back springs at the half stop. So this is the half stop. You open it and it, stops halfway. And most, if not all, of the previous runs of the 23 pattern, the back spring would sit low. And that's something that a lot of collectors look at as a kind of mark of quality, is that this back spring right here is flush at all 3 points: open, half stop, and close. And you can see on this one, it pretty much is. It actually runs just like, I don't even know if you can see it there, but just a tad less than a millimeter high at half stop on that main drop point blade, and then on the spay blade. but pretty much flush at all three positions. And that's again something that is, I think, a good improvement, especially for knives like this, that a lot of people who are buying them do appreciate the history of the square end jumbo trapper from Remington and things like that, and appreciate that kind of completely, actually not kind of, but completely aesthetic point of having the spring be flush at half stop. I say it's aesthetic because you're not going to use the knife with the blade at half stop, so as long as it's, you know, flush enough that it's not making holding the knife uncomfortable at the full open, it really doesn't make any practical difference. But again, it's something that collectors look for. Now, it's a classic, as I said, based on the Remington Jumbo Trapper, and it's just a Jumbo Trapper because it's kind of a chunkier, thicker version of most other classic trappers. So you can see it has that same handle shape as the case trapper, just a little bit bigger, and same again, it has that main blade. Now on these jumbo trappers, they do tend to be drop points rather than clip point blades like on the case for the mark side blade, and then the same as on the case trapper, the pile side blade is a full-sized spay blade. So it's just basically a scaled up trapper. And then let's take a look at that etch. You can see the etch is the same as the pin. So I think it's a pretty cool etch, actually. I'm not always a big fan of etches, but I think that this one, you know, fits the name of the knife that GEC has given it, the Pioneer, and is a pretty cool kind of detailed etch there, actually. You can see there's a guy splitting some wood with a wagon in the background. So I do like that etch, and I believe that that is a new etch for this pattern as well. Real quick, as you can see, like most knives made by GEC recently, especially almost all folding knives in the last 4 or so years have been carbon steel. They haven't done any stainless steel folding knives in a while. But lots of cool stuff with this knife. Like I said, I really do like the look and feel of this jigging. I also like the look of that shield with this knife. I don't always, again, love shields, but I think that it's a good choice on this knife. And as for the construction, it's really good. You'll see that the blades are pretty much perfectly centered, both of them perfectly centered. They don't have proud tips, although it's relatively close, but that's one thing that's pretty typical with these jumbo trappers, and the reason for that is because this upturn of the handle towards the butt of the handle allows it so that, you know, you're not going to get your finger caught on those tips even with them being relatively close to proud. So not an issue for me on that. The pins are done well. Interestingly, they're all domed. I don't know if that's because of this handle material or if they're all going to be like that on this run, but they're all domed rather than being flushed. I guess it would make sense with this handle material. There are no gaps on the back springs that I can see, so really nice on that. That's another thing that collectors really appreciate. The transitions between the bolsters and the handles are nice and smooth, maybe tiny slight gap right there, but pretty much perfect on the pile side. You'll notice that the shield and the bolsters are a satin finish rather than a polished finish, which is something that GEC has been doing more on the Tidioute line of knives. Something that I don't really mind. I think it's good on a user knife. Some people really like it, the look of it. Some people really don't like the look of it. I think it's mostly a preference thing. Again, I mentioned the fact that the springs are now pretty much flush at all three positions. That's another nice fit and finish aspect. Now, one small thing that I noticed, and I really don't know if it's my eye and kind of being thrown off by the slight diagonal nature of the jigging, but for me, it looks almost like this shield, I'll see how close I can get it here, almost like this shield is slightly canted towards the blade well. So, you know, this point is slightly lower than that point. I saw if it was loose. It's not loose. It is, you know, pinned in, of course. So it's not going to come out or anything like that. Just, you know, maybe they had the knife not completely, you know, square when they were routing out the area for the shield. So that's an aesthetic thing, something that I haven't really seen before, or at least noticed before, but not a huge deal, just something that I noticed and wanted to point out. And by the way, I said that I was always going to do this. I didn't do it at the beginning of this video, but I'll do it here. I did not ask the dealer to check this knife for any issues. I just, you know, ordered it, got it, and this is what I got. So, you know, I don't have to put any disclaimer on this one. This is just a random knife that I got like you would get if you ordered this. And that brings me into my next point here, which is the fact that there should even be more of this knife. So there's going to be a bunch of different versions of this knife that they're doing on this run. Several different handle materials on the Tidioute and on the Northfield Cutlery brands, as well as a kind of completely different version that's a single blade with a liner lock, as well as some SFOs for different dealers and clubs and things like that. So there's going to be a bunch of different knives, and you should be able to get one. This is going to be a full run of knives. It's not really a, you know, reduced run of knives or anything like that. So you should be able to get one of the different versions. They also have been shipping knives in batches. And what I mean by that is when a dealer gets each version, so like when a dealer gets this version, the Woodland Micarta Tidioute version, the first group of knives that they get and typically put online is not all of the models of this particular knife that they will get. Often GEC has been shipping them in broken up batches to each dealer. Now, there's different thoughts on why they're doing that. Part of it is so that the dealers get them sooner and don't have to wait till the whole batch is done, and kind of so that all of the different dealers get them at once, so one dealer doesn't have an advantage over the other. No matter why they're doing it, it's something to be aware of, because I see people, you know, see that a particular GEC knife goes up or is dropped on a dealer's site, and it sells out really, really quickly, even if it's a normal Tidioute version like this, and they're, you know, all upset that they didn't get one, and, you know, afraid that they're going to have to, or willing to pay higher secondary market prices. And I just want people to be aware that that's not really the case. Even if this knife itself, by the time this video is up, all have dropped, you know, even the different batches on different dealer sites, the other versions on this run will ship the same way. And if you miss out on the first batch, just keep your eye out for the next batch. It shouldn't be too stressful of a thing buying knives, right? It should be a fun thing. So that's most of what I wanted to say about this knife. Real quick, I'm going to give you some size comparisons, basically, because this is a big knife and it can be sometimes a little bit deceiving in dealer pictures, not by their, you know, intention, but just because it is such a big knife. So again, here is a case trapper. This is a full-size case trapper. So you can see that it's a good bit shorter and a little thinner than the GEC 23. Here is a GEC number 97, which is a big knife, but because it's a single blade, it's a good bit thinner also. So there's a size comparison. And I will pull out this GEC 98. So you can see the 98 is a little longer than the 23, but the 23 is relatively close in thickness. The 98 might be a little thicker because it's a 4-blade, so it has an extra liner in there, but similar size. And last traditional here is a Queen folding pocket hunter. This is a much longer knife. It's a really, really big knife. And I would say this one is difficult to carry in the pocket just because it's so long and doesn't have a pocket clip. But it is a good bit thinner than the GEC 23. The GEC 23s in this 2-blade version are pretty big, a good, amount of weight in your pocket without a pocket clip. So I tend to prefer for carry the single blade version, although I don't necessarily love traditional liner locks, but I'm going to give it a shot on this run. Either way, I think that they are carryable, but they're probably right at the edge of too big to carry for a lot of people. Now here is a Spyderco Police. You can see the Police is much longer, slightly thinner, but it's a big knife as modern knives go even. Here is a ridiculously big knife, the Cold Steel 4 Max Scout, which is both longer and thicker. Those are both kind of like excessively large knives, to be honest. And here is the ZT-0561. Here is a Spyderco Andorra. And here is a Benchmade Griptilian. So all of those are a little longer than this knife, but they're going to be lighter. I would say the only one that really compares in heaviness is the 4 Max, and yeah, even the ZT-0561 is lighter. The 4 Max is probably heavier. I don't really weigh knives that often because it's not a huge deal to me, but the Police is significantly lighter. So it is a big knife, something to be aware of if you're going to buy one. But I think a really cool knife. I'm looking forward to this run. I have a bunch of different versions of these that I'm expecting to get. The Allegheny Mountain Knife Collectors Association club knife is this in a goldenrod natural bone. The Shaner Sportsman's Club knife is this in the jigged, which is another new jigging pattern, jigged Brazilian cherry with the beaver tail shield. The Shaner Sportsman's Club is where the Allegheny Mountain Knife Collectors Association club is held, so kind of a twofer there. And then I'm hoping also to get the Kiefer Cutlery Classics blue camel bone liner lock version. So I'll have videos on those, hopefully a comparison. And in that comparison, or in those videos on those, I will also show you an older version of the 23 that has the lower springs. So keep an eye out for those. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to my channel so that you can see when I post those videos on the other versions of this knife. Hit the bell for notifications, and check me out on social media, all at Knife Thoughts. And finally, check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and other knife topics. And as always, don't forget to go out and do good.